All right, EC Dreamers, welcome to a very special video because today I'm joined by Dan from Britspeak. Hey, Dan.
All right, mate. How you doing?
I'm really well. This is fun. This is the first time I've done one of these videos, a kind of Q&A on Zoom. So thank you so much for joining us. Tell everyone like where you're at, where you're based, and what you're doing.
Yeah. So yeah, my name's Dan. I'm originally from up north in Sheffield.
Hey.
So got a bit of a Yorkshire accent. Nice. But these days, I find myself in Japan. I've been living in Japan for about 8 years now. And yeah, just teaching that English, you know how it is.
Fantastic. Yeah. We connected through Instagram and your account's awesome. I love the language that you teach, kind of proper British English. So first of all, I kind of want to get started with a sort of fast Q&A with you, getting to know you really quickly. So I have 5 questions, very simple. The first one is, what's your favourite British English word or phrase?
Oh, that's a good question. Maybe you can see it behind me. It says berate.
Berate. Okay.
I'm going to bring it a little bit closer to the camera so
there
you can
go.
See.
Okay.
Berate.
Okay,
this is a
Yorkshire
Yorkshire expression. So, yeah, rate is the British pronunciation of the word right. And be is short for it will be all.
Right.
So basically what it's saying is, it will be all right. Don't worry about it. Everything will be fine. But in Yorkshire, we say, berate.
Berate.
And this is probably my favourite expression.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Love it. What's your favourite British English accent?
Obviously Yorkshire, obviously. Nah, I'm kidding. Growing up in Yorkshire, South Yorkshire to be specific, because there is differences even within Yorkshire. That's my favourite thing. But I am a big fan of a lot of northern accents in general. Like, I love the Geordie accent. I think it's cool. I'm not going to embarrass myself doing an impression, but I quite enjoy listening to comedians from up north and that kind of thing. So yeah. How about yourself, by the way? What's your favourite British accent? Wow. You're a bit of a master of accents, right?
That's a tough one. I have a special love for 2. I think a Cockney accent I love. I'm from London, so I kind of have an affinity for it. And then a good Glaswegian accent. I'm a massive fan of that. Good Glaswegian. But I have a little love for all accents. In fact, we have a question later about British English accents, so we'll get to that. What's your, and I know the answer already, what's your favourite place in Britain?
Well, God's own country, innit? Yorkshire. No, I like a lot of different places in England. I'm a big fan of Camden in London.
All right.
Like, I grew up into punk rock and Big Mohican and all that stuff. And Camden was when I was a teenager, that was the place I wanted to be.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the coast in York, because Whitby and that way on is quite nice. And yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in England that a lot of people, I think, get stuck in London. I mean, London's great, but there's a lot of other stuff out there that's worth having a look at. So, yeah, there's a lot of cool places.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. What's your favourite British food?
Wow, that's tough. Obviously fish and chips, but I don't really eat the fish. Like chip butty with curry sauce, right? Does that make sense down south?
Yeah.
Yeah, a bit of moisture on it and that. So
what is a chip butty for people that might not know?
It's good. It's like a bread, I'm going to say bread cake, but a bread roll, maybe people would understand, with chips and then some curry sauce on top. It sounds terrible. Now I'm saying it out loud. It sounds bad, but it's amazing.
Yeah. Especially so after
I'm a fan.
Yeah, after a night out, maybe it's
yeah.
Definitely.
With loads of salt and vinegar.
Yeah. Okay, and last question. What's one tip you have for anyone coming to the UK?
Oh, yeah, good one. We don't speak like you learned in your textbook. You're going to have to spend a bit of time getting used to how we actually speak, the different accents, the different dialects. It's overwhelming at first, but if you spend time listening to podcasts, YouTube videos, and kind of immersing yourself in whatever regional difference you're going to be dealing with, life's going to be a lot easier. and learn to go to the pub and talk to people. That's what I would suggest.
Yeah, yeah. I think pub culture is such a huge part of British culture, right? And sort of, it's a way that we sort of socialize, isn't it? The way we kind of see friends and colleagues and stuff like that. So yeah, hugely important.
For sure.
Cool. All right, thanks for that, Dan. I love that. All right, so I asked on Instagram for a bunch of questions from my audience. We got some great ones. So let's just roll through them, see what we have. Let's go. So RJP19 asks, how did you get interested in teaching English?
Wow, that's a good question. I don't think anybody like dreams of being an English teacher when they're a kid, yeah? Like I'm not on the playground practicing grammar thinking, one day I'm going to be an English teacher. But I was working, in IT in England. It's kind of funny. Like I was working in an IT job all day looking at a computer, not really talking to people. And I was like, this is proper boring. So I decided to be an English teacher. So I went back to school and I studied some qualifications and I moved to Japan to teach English. Fast forward 8 years and here I am sat in front of my computer all day, just in a different part of the world. So life works in mysterious ways, mate.
That's so funny, actually. Like, I had a very similar thing where I was like in front of a computer for my first job, and exactly that. I was like, I don't want to sit in front of a computer. I want to kind of be in front of people, connecting, communicating. And yet, here you are, back where we began.
Like you can't escape. The computer's always going to get you back. So but I love it. So I'm pretty happy about that decision.
That's cool. And teaching in Japan, I mean, what kind of experience is that? Sort of, is it very, exciting, right? But how's the language? Do you speak much Japanese? And
yeah, it's a tricky one. Like in terms of the teaching, I've done pretty much everything you can do here. I've taught from 3-year-old kids when we're learning like apple, all the way through to like 80-year-old grandmas that are studying because their kids moved to Australia or something. Like the full spectrum. And I've worked in private education. I've worked in business English in various companies, and I've worked in the public school system. So I've kind of done a bit of everything. And it's been a really rewarding experience. It's really, really cool. And you get to meet so many awesome people and experience like a different side of the culture when you're like a part of it, when you're not just traveling there and you're actually
100%.
Giving something back. It's kind of fun. So the teaching side of it's really cool. Language side, I've been here 8 years, so I can speak Japanese enough to get by. Like, I don't know what CFR level you put on it. Probably somewhere between B1 and B2 and maybe towards C, I don't know. But I can deal with most things. But before I came here, I couldn't really speak Japanese, so that were a rude awakening when I arrived. So one of the reasons that I started trying to teach online is because when I came here, couldn't speak Japanese, really struggled, missed out on a lot of stuff. And then I taught myself the language and really struggled through it. And I thought, so many people go through the same thing in England, that just having somebody that can point out these weird little things that British people say and do, it's like my way of trying to help you avoid that same struggle. You know what I mean? So
yeah. I think that's really important. Yeah, sort of going through the struggle as a teacher really helps you become a better teacher, right? To understand what your students have gone through. Okay, this is related to another question. Silly Sausage asks tips on how to learn intonation. And I wanted to link that to you learning Japanese and the little I know about Japanese, because I got into a TV show called Terrace House, which I'm sure you know. And we watched it, and obviously I don't know any Japanese, but they're speaking Japanese, and then you've got the subtitles. And so you're picking up little bits and bobs. And there was one phrase I remember, and it was like, ine, ine. Like that was one character used to be like, ine. And it was like, I think that means like really cool, right? Or something like that, like great.
It's very good if you're literally translating it. It's good, right? Like that, so.
But like, the repetition of hearing them saying "ine" like every single episode was, it really got into my head, and I was like, okay. And I think if you are trying to learn intonation, one really good way to do that is listening to these real life examples and just that repetition of hearing it over and over again.
Totally agree. Like, if you're going to learn, especially the speaking side of it, you've got to immerse as much as you can, because think about when you learned your native language. You didn't just like pop out and be like, all right, everybody, how's it going? No, you didn't speak immediately. You spent years listening before you could then formulate anything. And then it took a long time to become actual words and so on and so forth. So I always think people get it the wrong way round. If you want to learn intonation, you learn by listening before you do anything else.
100%.
Whether that's YouTube videos or podcasts or TV shows or listening to BBC radio or whatever it is that you enjoy doing. I think enjoyment is a big part of it. Well, however you can kind of incorporate that immersion into your language journey, it's going to make things a lot better. And practically, you know, you can then move on to techniques like shadowing or reformulation or whatever technique it is that you want to use to practice that stuff. But the basic of it is like you need that immersion foundation at some point. And the internet is great for that. You can find it anywhere. So it's pretty good.
100%, yeah. I think there are, I think that shadowing technique is really great, right? So you listen and you kind of repeat. And things like, I'm just thinking about like shows like Friends. Okay, it's American English, so it's slightly different, but you know, a lot of principles still apply. And it's so full of, it's characterized by its intonation. When I think about someone like Joey going like, what does he say? Like, how you doing? Like, you know, it's kind of, there's stress, but there's intonation involved. It's like, just those simple words kind of, I know exactly how he's going to say it. Like, I know exactly the intonation. And so when you apply it to like British English, for example, like, I love the phrase, could do, like to say that I don't really want to do something. If someone suggests, Tom, do you want to go to cinema? I'm like, we could do.
Could.
Yeah, we could. And it's like that there, like that intonation. Yeah, we could. Kind of going up. You find these patterns, don't you, in intonation?
Yeah.
So as you say, really paying attention to other people, right? Listening, so key. I think same pronunciation, right? I think listening is a huge part of pronunciation. Kind of listening to what people are saying and how they're saying it.
Sure, and then trying to mimic it at first as much as you can. You know,
Right.
like that's how I learned Japanese. I just listened and copied what people were saying, even if I didn't really understand what it meant. I was just kind of training the muscles in my mouth to actually start making these sounds. I think is a big thing as well.
Yeah. Okay, cool. We've got another question from Kareem Jajuri. Sorry if I got that wrong. About how many accents are there in Great Britain?
Ooh, bloody loads! There's loads of them.
I mean, it's kind of, you can't put a number on it, right? Like, I think this is a kind of misconception, is that there's one Yorkshire accent and there's one. I mean, initially people think there's one British accent, which is like obviously that's
RP, right? That's what they assume is British English. But...
Exactly, and it's like there's so much more to it. And I remember reading about how some experts look at it as being more of like an accent continuum. It's like the accents evolve as you move through the country, but you know, someone might say last and their friend might say last, and it's like you know, everyone's got their own kind of pronunciation, I guess.
Yeah, it's like the Big Bang. Like we all started at the same place and then we just expanded in different directions, right?
Yeah.
So I think generally people think, okay, RP. You know, I watched Benedict Cumberbatch speak. That's British English. Okay, great, whatever. But I don't sound like that, and you don't particularly sound like that. I mean, and you're a great voice coach. I'm sure you could bust out a good RP accent if needed. But it's one of those things. It's like there's no correct answer, and even inside Yorkshire, you've got South Yorkshire, which is different. 30 minutes up the road is Leeds, and they speak differently to us. 10 minutes to Barnsley, and it's different. You know.
Yeah.
So I've read online somewhere they're like, oh, there's at least 47 accents, but there's way more. There is way more.
100%.
And it's fun though, because can you imagine how boring it would be if we all sounded the same? Like if everybody sounded exactly the same, it'd be a bit boring. So I appreciate that we've got all these different regional variations. It makes it a bit more interesting.
Definitely. And I think for learners, like you don't need to replicate a Cockney accent or a Sheffield accent, or
not at
all. You just need to kind of be familiar with it so that you can understand it, right? Particularly if you're coming to the UK and you're spending time here, just be familiar so that you will understand B rate, for example, or
exactly,
whatever it might be. I think that's the important thing.
Exactly that. like, you don't need a British accent. Your accent is fine as long as we can understand what you're saying, right? It's part of your identity. That's cool.
Yeah.
But this is my accent, this is my identity, and you might want to try and familiarise yourself with that if you're going to be spending time in Sheffield, for example.
Exactly.
But it's all relevant. Like, if you're coming to live in the UK and you're going to be spending time in Manchester, there's not much point in learning a Birmingham accent off the bat. You know, you kind of need to focus on what is the most important thing for you. And maybe you've got a personal preference. Maybe you just really like a Glaswegian accent like you. Yeah. Like, sure, spend time with that one. Great. Yeah. But it's all relative and there's no one size fits all, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, next question. Danny Chocobares asks, is it true that 5 o'clock tea is not tea? I mean, is it dinner time in the UK? Now, this is going to be a big divider between us, I think. So tell me, when someone says tea to you, what do you... We're not talking about the drink, we're talking about the meal.
Afternoon, another evening meal, right? For me, breakfast is in the morning. Then we've got dinner at what you would call lunch. And then we've got tea, which is not a beverage. It's an evening meal. And I'm pretty sure you could draw a line across the middle of the UK, right? Pretty much somewhere around Derby, Nottingham area, you could draw a line. Above that, it's tea. Below that, it's dinner. I'm pretty sure. So what about like the dinner ladies at school? Did you have dinner ladies or were they lunch ladies?
They were dinner ladies. Thing. Yeah, you're right.
Exactly.
You're right. My God, we've been saying it wrong all this time. So in the south, we're saying breakfast, lunch and dinner, right? But yeah, you're right. Yeah. Or supper. Where do you sit with supper? Is that a thing?
To me, supper feels like I'm going to have a piece of toast before I go to bed.
Okay.
Like that's, like a late thing. But going back to like breakfast, dinner and tea doesn't work for some things. Like you guys can have brunch, right? Breakfast and lunch brunch. But we can't have brinner. It doesn't really work, you know? So we'd still call it brunch. So I guess we're just taking stuff from each other, you know?
I think from today onwards, we have now Dan's invented a new word, brinner. And it's a Yorkshire brunch.
I love it. Let's coin that as an official Yorkshireism.
Like Avo on Yorkshire pudding or something like that. I think that's with a poached egg on top.
I don't even want to see that, but yeah, let's call it that.
Speaking of Camden, you said you were talking about Camden. Did you go to the place which was like a Yorkshire burrito? It's like a food stand.
In the Yorkshire pudding?
Yeah, it's Yorkshire pudding, but a burrito. Yeah, did you try it?
Yeah, I haven't tried it, but I've seen it. Like, it's quite famous, isn't it? Like, they just made a burrito, but with all Yorkshire stuff inside a big Yorkshire pudding wrap.
Yeah,
sounds
controversial.
Great, to be honest.
Yeah. I have had it, and it was pretty good. The best thing I've ever eaten, though, was in near Ben Nevis. So I was about to climb Ben Nevis, and we were staying in Fort William. And in the pub, they had a Yorkshire pudding filled with haggis. And I was like, this is genius. This is England and Scotland united. It was incredible.
There's not very often it happens, but when it does, it's absolute poetry.
We can all agree that did work for sure. All right, what other questions have we got? Oh, okay, this is a nice one. Okay, Itsumera00 says, my boss is from Newcastle, and every day he asks me, how are you? And I say, and I'm bored of saying, I'm good, how are you? Or pretty good, and you. Are there any other phrases or ways to reply? If someone says, how are you? Are there any other ways we can reply that might be interesting?
Sure. I mean, like, on a slight tangent, a big thing that annoys the hell out of me these days is you see all these people on Instagram like, stop saying this, stop saying that. There's nothing wrong with saying, I'm fine, thank you, right? Even if Ali would disagree with me with his 5 million views video about stop saying that. He was funny about it, I don't mind. But there's such a big thing about, you can't say this. Of course you can, it's fine. But like they said, they're bored of repeating the same phrase over and over again. That's the issue, right?
Yeah.
So, of course, I'm fine, I'm all right. And maybe that's kind of a normal thing. I'm all right. But I'm a pessimist at heart, so I'm always like, not bad. Fair to middling, ticking over. All these kind of expressions that are just really pessimistic about the day. Like, well, it's not terrible. That's as good as it's going to get. But I like those expressions, fair to middling is a kind of a northern thing. I
feel
think.
like if you said that though, that would spark a conversation because the person is expecting you just to say, yeah, fine, thanks. Like they're not genuinely asking you how you are. I mean, like they want to check in with you, right? Just being friendly.
Yeah.
But if you said, fair to middling, which, is kind of like, I'm all right.
I'm not bad.
But that would suggest that something's wrong, right? And so the person would be like, oh, well, like, what's up? Like, or maybe they would laugh. I don't know. Like,
maybe they'd be like, where did you learn that weird expression?
yeah.
Yeah, I think generally, it's a greeting, So it doesn't really matter what you say. Like, I'm great, I'm terrible. You're going to get the same response. Doesn't really matter. But for your own sake, if you want to try something a bit new, bust something like, not bad. One of my favourite things I always say, which is kind of a dad joke, is, I'm not 3 bad.
Okay.
It's not 2 bad, but +1. I'm a bit better than that. So I'm not 3 bad. But then people just look at you like, what?
Yeah.
I'm okay. I'm okay.
Yeah, I had to work and I was like, what? Oh, I get it. Okay, right. And I love a good dad joke.
So I often say that.
Yeah. I mean, maybe, like, it is hard to... I mean, there are just those standard phrases, right? Yeah, not bad, yeah. Like, all right, thanks, yeah. But maybe the creativity can come from the next thing you say, right? Ask a question to get them talking about something interesting, like, related to them, right? Oh, how was... Something related to... How was
the weekend? How's the kids? Whatever it is.
Yeah. Something specific to them might be the way to make it more interesting.
You're not gonna get Shakespeare out of this greeting. Like it's just gonna be you say how are you, I say I'm fine, then we move on to something more interesting. So don't sweat it too much. It's fine.
Or maybe instead of the pessimistic, maybe go super optimistic. Yep. Pretty amazing, thank you. Yeah, unbelievable.
I'm shocked. Like, what? Really?
Yeah, I'm shockingly good today. I don't know. All right, maybe. Fantastic. What other questions? We've got 1 or 2 more. We kind of did this, but Kareem Jajurit, again, apologies if I got that wrong. What inspired you lads to teach English? I just like the fact that they said you lads. I was like, nice.
Yeah, good start. I like it.
So we kind of covered that, but like, is there anything that got you inspired to teach English?
Yeah, I mean, when I first became a teacher, it was more a case of like, what do I have the skills to do? I never really had an affinity for English. The secret is, at school, I hated English. I wasn't a fan. But I was like, okay, what can I do to change my life? Oh, I can teach English. So I went and studied how to teach English. I mean, I'll be honest, before I went and did that, I didn't know English. Like, I speak English fluently, but I didn't know what it was or how it works. And, if somebody had said to me like, oh, you mispronounced that diphthong, I'd be like, what? What's a diphthong? What's a past participle? Like, because I didn't know. I can speak English, but I didn't know. And then it was more a case of it was a key for me to move careers, right? But my mum always used to say to me, it's like, Dan, whatever you do, don't be a crap teacher. Like, if you're going to teach people, put the effort in and really go for it and really learn what it is. So I kind of developed a passion for it after I started. And then after kind of losing my way a little bit, I then, thought about my own journey in Japanese in Japan. And I really thought like, look, there's a lot of different English out there. But for me, I want to work with people who want to learn specifically British English because they want to communicate with the people around them and they want to live their best possible life either in the UK or dealing with British people. So it's really like specific what I actually want to teach.
Yeah.
And that's a big passion. So like now I've found that passion, that's what I'm like hammering in.
Love it.
So how about you?
Yeah, I mean, like, so my mum was an English teacher. Again, like you, didn't grow up thinking I wanted to be an English teacher. Thought I was going to be a footballer. Clearly, that hasn't happened yet. And then, so she was an English teacher. And I think that just kind of like, the phrase, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Like, you kind of are influenced by the people around you and your parents. And so, I think that was a big thing for me. So, last question is from Chala Didman. And he says, hello, Tom and Dan. What was the most captivating film or TV series you've ever watched?
That's a good one.
Yeah. And then maybe we could talk about TV series to watch to learn English?
For sure. So I don't know if it's particularly captivating, but I'm a big fan of like 90s comedies in the UK. BBC comedies from around the 90s. So really specifically, I loved a TV show called Bottom with Rick Mayall and Aid Edmondson. Red Dwarf was about that time. We've also got like Alan Partridge, Father Ted, all these kind of 90s British comedies. That's my cup of tea.
Yeah.
To coin a phrase. But it's not exactly what I would call captivating. It's not like you're on the edge of your seat waiting for the next episode. It's just a laugh. So I guess I would have to say probably like Breaking Bad. Not British, but that was really captivating. I thought that was great.
Yeah, I've heard that's amazing. I haven't watched it myself, but I've heard it.
What?
Yeah.
What?
I literally get that reaction every time. I've seen the first episode and was like, okay, it seems pretty good, and I haven't continued. But
it's on my watch list.
yeah. Okay, I mean, I'm with you on a lot of those like 90s shows. Alan Partridge is my favourite show ever.
I love it.
But I showed it to a class once when I was teaching in a school, and I was like, guys, this is the funniest thing you'll ever see. And just silence for the whole entire
Crickets.
time. Yeah, because I think it's very culturally specific, and
it is
kind of hard to translate some of the jokes.
Yeah.
I would go with... so I started Peaky Blinders last night. I'm talking about the old school
really
series. Yeah, I watched the first episode last night. Loved it. So that could be
nice.
That could be my suggestion. Also, I love like HBO stuff. So I mean, The Sopranos back in the day, but Succession...
That was great. The ending's amazing.
Yeah, I liked it. Yeah, I thought it was good.
I thought it was good.
Yeah. Succession, more recently, I think was amazing.
Oh, yeah. I've heard good things.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And, White Lotus as well. There's two series. It's kind of like you're looking at these very rich people, and there's a lot of drama and, sort of death, and it's quite cool. But they're on holiday, so you're kind of living vicariously through them. They're in Hawaii and then Italy. It's kind of... looking at this luxurious lifestyle they lead is kind of interesting.
We're sat there like...
yeah. Maybe I could be there one day. But yeah, that's it. Cool.
In terms of like other TV shows then, what I would recommend... Oh, Black Mirror, by the way, is kind of good if you've not seen Black Mirror.
That's good.
It's kind of dark, but it's good. It's really good. But if I was going to recommend TV shows for people that maybe like they're intermediate level and they don't get the full nuance of what's happening, like I'm a huge fan of Taskmaster. I absolutely love Taskmaster because it's quite physical humour. You don't really need to understand 100% what they're saying to enjoy it. There's a lot of different accents on there. You're always going to get somebody from the north, somebody from the south, and there's always a lot of different accents, and it's entertaining. Like, I enjoy that. Other than that, I quite enjoy stuff like IT Crowd or In-Betweeners. That kind of... It's not hugely hard to understand, but it's entertaining.
There's some very interesting slang in Betweeners. I love it.
For sure.
I think you need a little slang dictionary to watch it. Yeah. I love Gogglebox. You were saying about Taskmaster.
Oh, great, yeah.
I love Gogglebox for variety of accents and therefore vocabulary as well. And I think it's a great representation of Britain as well. Like, it's just so diverse.
It is.
It's really... You
get a bit of everything.
Yeah.
It's a real hodgepodge, which is a good word for today.
Well, Dan, thank you so much, man. We've answered all the questions. I think we did all right. I think we've got through quite a lot there.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. Proper buzzed on it, as we were. If you want some more slang for today.
Dropping all the
absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for getting together and great enjoyed that.
Great. Where can people find you if they want to follow up?
Sure. If you go to britspeak.co/eat, sleep, dream, there's a link there with everything you need to know. Hopefully see you in a video at some point soon.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dan. Appreciate it.
Take it easy, bud.
Cheers.
Talk to you soon. Bye.